This discussion of Netflix's The Witcher Season 3 was recorded in July 2023 prior to the Hollywood writers and actors strikes. Listen, I'm not a calamari girl, so I'm Team Yen on this front.
More for me.
I mean, I like calamari. I do not do squid.
We had to sit there and dissect squid in 7th grade science class. I think I was 10 or 12. And as we were cutting into this top of the squid and taking it apart, our teacher pipes up, "That's how calamari is made." And I'm like, I'm never touching calamari in my life.
My first job as a 16-year-old was as a fishmonger. So for me, it's just squid is food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was how I was introduced to them.
Yeah. It was just the overwhelming smell of a 7th grade science classroom. And then
sweaty teenagers and fish.
Wouldn't recommend. Hey everyone, welcome to Breakfast in Beauclair, a global Witcher podcast. My name is Alyssa from GoodMorhen, and I'll be your host as you, I, and our international hanza accompany Geralt of Rivia and his destiny, Cirilla of Cintra, across the continent. Well, we are finally back to new content. I've been holding on to these part 1 episodes. Here are the discussions that we had when the series first came out. Quick announcement before we get into it. We have confirmed the dates and the location for our Hanza meetup this year. We're so excited to be hosting our Hanza meetup, celebrating the 5th anniversary of the podcast in Krakow, Poland. That will be the weekend of August 9th through 12th. If you are interested in attending with us and visiting such a beautiful city, you get to see the Vavel Dragon. Make sure you let me know. Join the Hanza Discord at bit.ly/the Hanza Discord, and we will add you to that planning group. Can't wait to see you in Poland. Thanks as always to our patrons and our producer-level patrons, Katie the Redhead of Jusant, Jacob B., Charlotte from Vangerberg Glamorai, The Original Roach, Libby, John of Riblia, Tom from Australia, Jill Kate the Tabby Witch, Ollie from Sweden, James Carson III, Miriam of Temeria, and Softy. If you are also interested in supporting the show, you can do that at patreon.com/breakfastinbeauclair. As for this episode, Gintare from the UK and Vang from Denmark call in for our discussion on Netflix's The Witcher, episode 301, Shaerrawedd. Join us as we discuss Yennefer and Geralt's evolving relationship, the newly abstract nature of Dol Blathanna, the development of Ciri's morals and ideals, and dead devils. Without further ado, let's get to our discussion of Netflix's The Witcher, episode 301, Shaerrawedd. Hey guys, welcome to Breakfast in Beauclair. My name is Alyssa, and today we're welcoming 2 members of our hanza to the show. My first guest is a musician and a visual artist from Lithuania and the UK. Although this is her first appearance on the podcast, she's a familiar voice in the Breakfast in Beauclair hanza and can often be found playing D&D in the Hanza Discord. My second guest is a Danish artist who you'll recognize from their appearance on Breakfast in Beauclair episode 73, covering Netflix's Blood Origin, 103 of Warriors, Wakes, and Wondrous Worlds. You can find them on Witcher Instagram and Twitter, making doodles and art about our favorite characters on the continent. Please welcome Gintare from the UK and Vang from Denmark. Hello, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, absolutely. It's so lovely to have you both to open up Breakfast in Beauclair / The Witcher Season 3. Gintare, it's your first time on the show. I'd love to hear about how you got into the world of The Witcher.
So my boyfriend got the 3rd game for PlayStation. I thought it was just going to be like a slasher game, so I was like, I'm not going to play that. But as soon as I saw him play it and I realized that it's actually based on Slavic mythology, it has a story, it's got a beautiful world, I was like, yeah, I'm playing it. And then season 1 came out, and then I got into the books, and here I am.
Love it. You both have gotten really into the Witcher community, both online and in person. Vang, I know that you're very involved in Witcher Instagram and Witcher Twitter. Gintare, we've actually met in person over in Belfast last May, and you're constantly around the Discord, which I love. And I'd love to hear from you both, since last time you were on the show, Vang, and in the last few years, Gintare, how has the Witcher community really shaped your interaction with the fandom and I guess your friendship groups in the last few years?
Well, for me, The Witcher has, and this is going to sound a little silly maybe, but it's my first proper adult fandom. I feel like a lot of fandoms I've been in have had a lot of teenagers in it, which means that I've had a lot of people I couldn't relate to as an adult. So here I've been able to meet people at my own age group, and we've been able to connect in a whole other way. I have flown out to meet people from this fandom and had these amazing interactions and made friendships for life, I feel like. So yeah, it's been great, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like same for me. Like, I used to watch Doctor Who, and like I was a massive fan of that, and I'm still a fan of it. But there's a lot of teenagers there in that fandom, and getting involved with The Witcher, I first started getting into Reddit, which is how I found this podcast. But it's as we know, it's not always the place where you can be positive about this fandom. So it was really nice to find this podcast and this community of people that I can now call friends. It's really lovely.
Obviously, you were in the Discord as well prior to Belfast, but I feel like we didn't know each other as well before meeting in person. And then afterwards, I was like, oh my God, I love Gintare. It's fucking awesome. We karaoke together super hard, which is so much fun.
That
10 out of 10. Would recommend going out with Gintare.
I'm always jealous when I hear people meet up because I just want to join so bad because
Didn't you have a London meetup?
Oh no, I went over to meet specifically a friend in London.
Right, Ciri, yeah.
Yeah. And it was amazing. She is the sweetest and I love her so much.
Next time you're in UK, do let us know. We can set up like a London meetup.
I might actually be going already next year.
Yes.
So we'll have to look into it. I'm not sure yet, but I am considering taking my third vacation in London in a row. I really should be going other places, but I've just been enjoying London a lot. You can't experience enough in one trip, you know what I mean? I have to, like, just the fact that I went back here the second time, I've experienced even more. So yeah, it's a fun city to visit. It really is.
Yeah, there's a lot to see and a lot to do.
Gintare is based in London, if you didn't know, Vang.
See, even a better excuse to go now.
Absolutely. Well, today we'll begin our discussion of Netflix's The Witcher Season 3 with episode 301, Shaerrawedd, in which Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri journey to the far reaches of the continent in search of a safe haven. King Vizimir puts his charming younger brother to use. Here's a quick synopsis of the episode from future Alyssa. In episode 301, Shaerrawedd, Rience sends the professor and a group of bounty hunters on a manhunt for Ciri, but the hunters are intercepted by Geralt and quickly dispatched. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri spend months moving from safe house to safe house as Rience hunts them across the continent. Along the way, Yennefer teaches Ciri magic while trying to make amends with Geralt for her actions in the previous season. After their last safe house is found, the group winters with Yarp and Zigrin. Changing tactics, Rience finds a jackapace trained to track elves and sets it on Ciri's scent using the vial of her blood stolen from GoodMorhen. Francesca Findabair, the Queen of the Elves, continues to hunt for Ciri, believing the girl is a promised savior that will help her starving and displaced people. Gallatin, a Scoia'tael leader, confronts Francesca about her secret missions as he tries to keep the elven commanders alive. In Redania, King Vizimir openly shows his displeasure with Dijkstra and Philippa Eilhart's efforts to capture the Princess of Cintra. Instead, he trusts his brother Radovid with the task. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri join the local Bellatin festivities. Yennefer and Ciri enjoy their birthdays, and the Witcher and Sorceress reminisce about times gone by. Their celebrations are cut short, however, when Rience's jackapace corners Ciri in a maze. Geralt intervenes and kills the monster. After the attack, they decide the best course of action is to draw out Rience by loudly sharing that Ciri and Jaskier will be traveling with Yarpen's next convoy. Cut to Jaskier fighting with his on-and-off-again lover Vespula. Philippa and Radovid arrive and proposition Jaskier to bring Ciri to Redania. On the road, Yarpen's convoy makes camp in Shaerrawedd, an elven ruin with a deep history. Geralt and Yennefer tell Ciri the story of Eilaren, the elven warrior who led young elves into battle against the humans, and to their deaths. Meanwhile, Francesca and Gallatin agree to work together to attack the convoy. The following day, Ciri acts as bait for Rience. Geralt and Yen ambush the mage and his bounty hunters with help from Yarpen and his men. Rience escapes through a portal, but Yen holds it open and Geralt follows him. The Scoia'tael attack. Ciri and Dara reunite briefly on opposite sides of the battle. Geralt briefly confronts Rience, but only breaks both of his wrists before returning through the portal to Shaerrawedd. In the chaos, Yarpen challenges Dara and Gallatin, who commands the Scoia'tael fighters to fall back. Before they can, Geralt kills Francesca's brother Gage as the elf tries to abduct Ciri. After the battle, Yennefer suggests taking Ciri to Aretuza to protect her from Rience's powerful benefactor and to further her training safely. Despite Ciri's pleas to stay together, the three of them part ways when Geralt decides to hunt Rience alone. Back at Shaerrawedd, Francesca mourns Gage and the other fallen elves. Frustrated with her leadership, Gallatin leaves to seek out an old friend. Shaken, Jaskier agrees to work with Redania in exchange for their help in eliminating Rience. He reveals that getting rid of Rience will be the key to earning Ciri and Geralt's trust. Meanwhile, in Nilfgaard, Emperor Amirvar Emrys burns old portraits of him and Pavetta, his former wife and Princess of Cintra, but keeps a portrait of Ciri as a baby. Now that we've gotten a download on the synopsis of the episode, I'd love to get both of your overall thoughts on the season premiere. So what do you guys think about the story and the plot, the production, the casting, everything for episode 1 Shaerrawedd?
I'm so much happier with it than season 2.
I'm in love with this season.
Definitely. All of the things that I wanted to see in the season, I feel like I'm seeing in this season, which is really nice. And I really love that they've cut down the action to give more character growth.
I'm in love with this season. I am in love with this season. Everything I was lacking in season 2, they gave me in season 3. I had the humor back that I missed so much from season 1. The more lightheartedness that season 1 had, they brought it back in season 3. And to me, that is just such a core thing of how I like to experience the show. Like, I like the little bit of lighthearted humor mixed in with all the seriousness. It was just, and the pacing, I loved it. I love the cinematography in season 3. It was great. Great cinematography, the styling, the colors, the pacing, the action scenes. I love the little angles when we saw it inside the body of the character getting killed, like plop, and he fell over. It was just like, there was just something almost movie-like in it. It had a bit more of a movie vibe, actually. Solid 10 out of 10 with that. I loved that. Cinematography was the best to me.
Yeah. It absolutely feels like a different show, like tonally, and I think the cinematography is a huge part of that. The two things that lean into that for me, the cinematography and the pacing, I would definitely agree with you, Gintare. I think that this new format, trying not to squeeze in action everywhere, does allow a lot more time for character work, which, you know, with all the emerging actors that we have here in season 3 was just phenomenal. We had a bunch of new actors, such as Cassie Clare as Philippa, who just killed this season.
Yes.
Hugh Skinner as Radovid, again, like a big standout. Sam Wolf taking up the mantle from Chris Fulton to be Rience. And I thought that he did a great job kind of continuing that.
He was so good.
Yeah, he did great.
Still creepy.
It's literally in my notes. I was so excited about him.
Yeah. We had a lot of really great returning actors as well. Of course, our main trio, like, it's really great to see Anya and Freya grow since season 1 especially. I think they've really, you know, they've continued to, like, improve their craft, but, like, I feel like they did a standout job this season. They're continuing to develop, and I think it's amazing. Jeremy Crawford, I was glad to have him back. Misha Simpson, she's amazing as Francesca, and I think the actors across the board are one of the strongest parts of the show.
Sophie knows what she's doing.
Absolutely.
She's been casting amazingly throughout the whole thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she has been doing an amazing job finding people that simply are, what do you say, capable of portraying the characters correctly, in my personal opinion here.
Yeah.
Because they just have that feeling that I get from the characters in the books, or in the games for that matter. They seem to, like, embody them.
I know some people don't like that Kira isn't blonde, but Kira's actress did such a great job. It just felt like Kira from the start.
And also how these people, like the actors in the show, when they have taken on these characters, every single one have added their own little thing and depth to the characters they've been portraying, and just made them their own, but keeping true to the core value of the character, I feel.
Yeah.
And I think, like, as an extension of that as well, one of the things that I noticed immediately upon watching episode 1 was the difference in soundtrack. Obviously, there's been a little bit of changes in resourcing and creators behind the Witcher soundtrack between season 1, season 2, and then now season 3.
And Blood Origin, for that matter.
Oh, and Blood Origin as well. But for season 3, game players will have a little bit of delight in knowing Percival Schutenbach. One of the composers behind the Witcher video games is also featured very heavily in the season 3 soundtrack, and I could hear it almost immediately. It feels a little bit more Slavic. There's a lot more vocalizations throughout the entire soundtrack that we didn't get as much in season 2, and I feel like it's a nice addition to season 3, and it adds, I think, a little bit of nostalgia and connection to the games as well.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's part of this universe, and like I think having more traditional instruments as opposed to like generic strings, it really helps.
So I did have one question from a community member. Michelle from Mexico, Vang, wanted to ask you, as an artist, what moments or elements stand out to you from this episode as potential inspiration for your own creation?
Well, one have already stood out because I already drew Shaerrawedd just from the previews.
Yeah.
I already did drew that. So yeah, of course, Shaerrawedd is a huge inspiration for me because it's been my favorite locations in the books since forever. I was ecstatic seeing it just in the little clips when we had the trailer. So I already then started drawing it. So definitely Shaerrawedd.
Oh, I love that. And there's a number of other book references and game references that will be familiar to readers and to game players. So things like Ciri and Geralt's piggyback, which you'll see in The Witcher 3, which they recreated in the show as well. Yarpen makes reference to squirrels hitting Hensel's convoy. You can find that in Chapter 4 of Blood of Elves. Ciri teaching Yen to ice skate. It is
so cute.
Cute. Very cute. It's so sweet and so fast. But Emma Sherjarko, one of the future guests, mentioned that it's Chekhov's ice skates. You haven't finished the books, have you, Vang?
No, actually, I haven't. I haven't finished completely. I take them very slowly at the moment because I am completing the full elf notes. Because I feel like they're a bit lackluster online, so I'm actually completing this. So it takes a long time to read them when you have to constantly stop and take notes.
Okay, so ice skates are cute. We'll put a pin in that. Bellatin from Sword of Destiny, if you remember. Dol Blathanna, you'll recognize from The Last Wish. And from the short story, The Edge of the World. Yen and Ciri sharing a birthday is something that we find out in Sword of Destiny. Vespula is a book character that we see Jaskier interact with. Joey Beatty advocated to have her included in the show, which is very fun. Radovid compliments the Song of the Seven, which was the song that closed out the credits of Blood Origin episode 4. And then, of course, Shaerrawedd is an entire scene in Blood of Elves. And the idea that someone is puppeting Rience, you will find in Blood of Elves as well. So that's all of the fun little Easter eggs and references that we happen to get in episode 1.
I have another Easter egg.
Oh, do you?
Yes, because the song Francesca sings at Gage's and the other elves' funeral is the exact same song Philavandrel sings in season 2. It's the same verse even.
Oh.
Yeah, you can find the lyrics if you actually go snoop a little on the Philavandrel Netflix page specifically. Then you can hear the little sound clip and see the lyrics. And in those lyrics, we actually get the spoiler that Turuviel is dead.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
She's in Halo now.
Yeah. If you look at the lyrics to the basically the song of Elves Lost, and you will see that Turuviel is written into the song, like Philavandrel mentions that they do with newly lost elves. And you see Turuviel is written into the text on the Philavandrel page.
She's one of my favorite kind of like marker characters in the books, just because every time you see her, you have a new understanding of the continent and you see her from book 1 to book 7, basically.
It is an odd choice to have killed her off.
Off screen.
Yeah, off screen even. Like, we see Philip Andrel sing the song at the campfire in season 2, not to sit here and talk too much about that, but he is singing the exact same verse as Francesca, which tells me that that's the like intro to the song, and then the verse added will be of the people you newly lost, which means that had we heard more of Francesca's song, we would probably have heard her name Gage specifically.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really nice call out and a nice way to kind of tie in those scenes between seasons, but also to like really build out their culture, their reverence, their mourning practices as well.
And I really liked her performance of the song because it was so emotional. You could hear every single note of grief.
Mm-hmm.
It is sad that we don't get to actually proper hear it in season 2. It has been way overdrowned by all the background noise.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this is the only funeral that we get in season 3, and I'm sure there will be many, many more to come by the end of the season as well. I'd love to dive into our discussion questions for this episode. Seeing as this is the season premiere, how would you guys say episode 301 transitions the viewer from the previous season and reintroduces viewers to the world of the continent?
Well, head first.
Yes. Literally, that beheading is very intense.
Quite literally, head first. They really did set the tone immediately with season 3. They immediately said, we're not going to be like season 2. Even though we start out with a, how we say it, not really a fight. There wasn't really much fight over it. It was a slaughter, basically.
We're reminded of the stakes, which is that people are after Ciri and they will not stop.
Exactly.
That is an Easter egg itself. The professor and his cronies are also characters that appear in Time of Contempt.
And yeah, I really liked the montages of them moving from place to place with the voiceover from the letters, just to kind of like show us moments of bonding and also like how things are going, as well as to like explain what's going on between Yen and Geralt.
Yeah, I think that from last season to this season, there's a little bit of heavy-handed exposition, which I think you still need in season premieres, just to put little markers for viewers to just be like, do you remember this thing that happened last time? For example, Geralt and Yen at some point mention Caingorn and the Dragon Hunt. It's like, oh yeah, that happened in 2019. Now it's 2023. And just little things like that are littered throughout the episode. But I do think that's really important in a season premiere.
Mm-hmm.
So we're slowly being reintroduced to the world of The Witcher, and I do think like the brutality is part of it. But they're also starting to bring in, as you said, that new pacing and the politics. So I think easing that in with like an early Monster of the Week in the jacket pace, I think was a nice halfway point before we push forward to more political intrigue for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Gintare, you mentioned Yennefer's Dear Friend letters as well. Obviously, those are very familiar to book readers. We spoke about it very heavily on the Breakfast in Beauclair episode. I believe Blood of Elves Chapter 5 is when we get that letter. And for the show, though, how do Yennefer's Dear Friend letters forward the relationship between her and Geralt between seasons 2 and 3? And what would you guys say is their current dynamic as parents and mentors to Ciri?
In episode 1, I feel like she has, because of season 2, she has a lot of trust building to do.
Yeah.
and I feel like Geralt just seems to be giving her the silent treatment, which is both very in character but also a little bit annoying for me. But it you can see in moments when he's alone, like Henry kind of plays it as a very conflicted emotionally. Like he wants to go to her, but he still doesn't trust her, and he has to do right by Ciri. So he doesn't. And it's just Yennefer reaching out to him constantly through the letters until she comes asking for the wine. And I feel like at Yarpin's place, when they both disagree about the Beltane's festival, they're kind of like I feel like that's the moment on screen where they're like on the same page as parents.
I can't add to that.
How did the letters sit for you, Vang?
Well, how did they sit? There were letters. I'm sorry, I didn't pay. I didn't.
That's okay.
I didn't put that much into it. I just thought that it was a very smart way to pace the whole thing and like tie things together to get the momentum going of the filming of these scenes instead of having these conversations. It was a brilliant way to me to just use the letters that we already know from the books.
Yeah.
So in way of just like having an easy way to show a lot of background content, but then have a voiceover. I think that was just a smart way to do it, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think as book readers, the Dear Friend letter is iconic because of its sarcasm and its wit and its almost cruelty toward Geralt.
She's so snarky.
It's so snarky and so fucking funny. And it's Yennefer, like book Yennefer to a T. And so I think the sincerity and the emotion was very new in this adaptation, but it wasn't unwelcome. And I do think that it was an efficient way to add emotion to the entire montage and to tie the episode together from Yennefer's voiceover in the beginning to Geralt's voiceover at the end. So it feels progressive for viewers and adds a little bit more commentary and exposition, like I said, between seasons about their relationship. And Anya Chalotra's voiceover is just emotive. It's lovely to listen to. And even in her sarcasm, there's still overtones of sincerity, which is really nice. Like she talks about him finding them a dollhouse on a squid farm, and it's like, that's sweet.
Especially because she was not happy about getting the squid.
Yeah.
She was very unhappy about the choice of seafood that Geralt was catching.
As we're, looking at their dynamic throughout episode 1, what would you guys say is their current, I guess, situationship as parents and mentors to Ciri specifically?
Geralt definitely is falling into the dad role. Like, it's so obvious that Ciri gets more and more comfortable with him. Like, she plays with him and teases him, and she's actually respecting his opinion and like bonding with him. While with Yennefer, there's like she looks up to her, but there's definitely that hesitation because of the choice of Volethmaer in season 2. There's now this barrier between them, but I think that Yennefer like makes up for it in her eagerness to be Ciri's mom and in her deep devotion to keep her safe now.
And I like that they address like that. There's a conversation between Ciri and Yennefer after training where they address the issue of Volethmaer.
Yeah, they do glaze over it slightly.
Yeah.
But it's a very quick kind of drive-by of like, why did you try to kill me? I was desperate. Okay. Ooh, I don't know if that's going to fix everything.
I was the pressy spaghetti. Woo.
We had to say this.
Yeah, it's like we have to address it. I do think that it does feel like, from a plot and writing perspective, that they can't not address it.
Absolutely.
At the same time, it's obviously a very big mark on their relationship that now we have to both write ourselves out of and act ourselves out of. So not an easy task, I think, given the plot choices for season 2. But I do think that given the material, the actors in season 3 do their best to kind of realign those relationships throughout the season. One of the questions that you brought up, Vang, of course, about the elves. When we return to the elves in season 3, Francesca's continuing to hunt for Ciri and Dol Blathanna. And why might Francesca speak of Dol Blathanna as a place of unknown origin?
Exactly, because we know for a fact Dol Blathanna is a place. And if I remember correctly, we actually mapped out where on the original Blood Origin map Dol Blathanna would have been placed, and I think it's in Prussia, if we look at the mountain chain. So what I'm wondering is, why is Dol Blathanna now this hypothetical place in Francesca's world? Because she speaks of it as a place that simply do not exist, that must be created. More like a sanctuary. She speaks of it as the Holy Land for the elves, and not a place that we actually knows exists. The Valley of the Flowers does exist. And Filavandrel, and I'm sorry, but I saw the best comment about this on Twitter where she's like, we need to find Dol Blathanna. Someone was like, just ask Filavandrel, he just came from there. I was like,
yeah.
And I completely lost it when I saw that one, because that was my exact thought through the whole thing. I was like, why don't you just head there? Like, why is it spoken of as if it doesn't exist?
It does feel more like an idea than an actual place. And like my thinking is, if it is this idea, like Dana Maeve obviously told Filavandrel to like get out of their old Valley of Flowers, and now Francesca is like trying to find this new place. And because of Ciri and Ika, I'm wondering whether they know about traveling between worlds, and that's what they're looking for.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good theory. Yeah, but they're way too young to remember the traveling between the monoliths, and the only book in existence is in the hands of the mages.
The Book of Monoliths.
Yes, the Book of Monoliths.
Unless that has been like passed down verbally between elves, I don't think they would even know about the traveling anymore. In that capacity, they probably knew that they came to this world, but like how specifically, we don't know.
It's hard to say. Like, I do think that with Francesca and the elves now, I think with both Ciri and the concept of Dol Blathanna, I do think those are very overt religious overtones to the Holy Land and the religious figure. Yeah. So I think we'll see like the fervor with which Francesca chooses to pursue her goals throughout the rest of the season. But I do think that it's interesting that it's become less of a physical place and more of an ideal. Yeah, and I do think for the purpose of the show, it can make sense that this is something that she's fighting for, and it's an abstract concept, especially for a main character who needs a motivation. The more abstract it is, I think the more opportunity that Francesca has to shape what her vision is as queen. So I think from a writing and a plot perspective, I think that there's something nice about it that will help push her character forward. I don't know what that means, of course, to not have a physical place, but it probably opens up the alliance with Nilfgaard, as we've talked about, because now they're probably open to additional manipulation from Emir and other Nilfgaardian forces, because if Dol Blathanna isn't literal, it can be anywhere, as Gage said, and as Gallatin said.
Also, if it's an ideology, as Francesca said, the next slaughter will be on the humans. Mm-hmm. So if it's an ideology, then Dol Blathanna is the freedom from humans more than a place. It could simply also just be a societal construct, in her opinion.
Yeah, I think that this is hugely motivating for her character, and I guess we'll see how that plays out throughout the rest of the season. On the subject of idealism, we do talk a lot about Ciri's ideals, broadly speaking. And when Ciri's in Shaerrawedd, she draws parallels between Aelaren and her grandmother Calanthe. How would you guys say her experiences continue to shape her morals and ideals, from what we've seen in season 1 and 2 to this place marker in season 3?
I feel like Geralt has definitely rubbed off on her. And I think finding out that her grandmother, who she was idealizing, killed or tried to kill a whole species just to keep her safe, probably complicated her learning about the world and her ideas and morality. It probably complicated it because it's a heavy concept for a young child to wrap their head around. But by this point, I feel like Ciri is starting to come around to Geralt's idea, which is that every life is a life and we don't take lives for no reason.
And it's very obvious that she's young because she's very idealistic about her approach for the whole thing. She's like, I'm just going to save the entire continent when I become queen. I'm going to be the thing that unites us all.
I'm going to bring peace to all the world.
Yeah, she's very idealistic. And the thing is that Geralt says so beautifully is that I don't doubt you, I doubt the world. Because he doesn't doubt her intentions and her in her big heart in this. But the thing is, Geralt knows the world. He's been around for quite a while, especially as a Witcher. He's seen people. He knows how they take, and he has seen history repeat itself, which history is known to do.
Yeah, and he's been in court, and he knows how backstabby they can be.
Yeah, Yennefer as well. And I think given their tenure on the continent and the capacity in which they've both worked and interacted with all types of people, from the lowborn to the highborn, so on, Ciri has such a short view because of her age and her naivety about what exists on the continent.
And biased from growing up in court.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she's a princess. She has a very sheltered view of the world. And granted, a lot of her belief and sense of justice really comes from losing that. So we're starting to see that idealism here, like her connection between Eilaren and Calanthe. If you lay it out, both sides are advocating for the same thing and with the same fervor and just trying to exterminate the other. And her question is really just like, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we killing each other? I can make things better. I can do it differently.
She even draws a parallel to herself in Eilaren, if you look at it, because she said if she had just had her elder's support, hinting the fact that if you just believe in me, I can do this. I think that was like a really important spot where she's like, how am I so much more different than her being an ideologist to me being an ideologist?
Yeah. I think they weren't as explicit in the dialogue for this scene as they were in the books about, like, yes, Eilaren brought up all of the elves. She reignited their force to fight. The reason why she condemned their species was because only young elves can procreate, and that's really the crux of the issue. And Geralt kind of talks about that, but he glazes over it and doesn't say it super explicitly. And then the one thing that Lars from Witcherflix called out in his My Two Orens series on Instagram was that they also don't mention that the elves themselves were the ones that destroyed Shaerrawedd when they sought refuge from the humans. So I think there's additional layers to the story that might have been more interesting had they been added in, or colored the elves' experience a little more, and how desperate Shaerrawedd really was and why it came about. Yeah, I do think that would have been a nice thing to layer in. But I wonder how Ciri's story can kind of continue with that idealism and her sense of justice and heroism and her desire to be a queen.
I think one of the reasons they chose actually not to go into too much depth about elves killing off their own species, so to speak, is because The Witcher took a very specific choice by letting Filavandrel and Francesca fall pregnant. Mm-hmm. They're way too old. I think the reason why they glaze over it a little bit is to avoid speaking of a thing that doesn't fit into the Witcher Netflix universe specifically.
Yeah, that was primordial Volithmir magic, I think. So
yeah,
we might have to squish it aside a little bit.
Because the thing is, as she said, Francesca, she's been pregnant a lot of times. She wasn't able to carry them to terms. But that just means that she was still fertile, even though she was old, which she shouldn't have supposed to have been. I think that could be a good reason to not go into too much depth talking about it, because they simply just made a choice to just make the lines a little more blurry in which elves can reproduce in The Witcher Netflix again.
Shaerrawedd is really important and critical to our characters and to the story, just because it's the setting for another big fight scene, the first that we get this season. And toward the end of the episode, Geralt follows Rience through a portal. I think a huge question that the fandom has about this scene is, should Geralt have spared Rience, and why do you think he did?
No, he shouldn't, but he should, because else the story can't progress.
I know a lot of people say that, he was capable of killing him, he should have killed it. And I'm like, yes, but the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. He followed Rience to a castle through a portal that Rience didn't open himself. Maybe it would have been better if Yennefer mentioned about somebody else opening the portal to give Geralt that idea that somebody else is involved in this. But I'm thinking that would be why Geralt would keep Rience alive, because he's got clues about what Rience is like, that he's working with somebody, and he kind of saw scenery around the castle to give him some context of where to find him. So he did the best he could do and broke his hand so he could come back and like either finish the job or question him, find out why Rience wants Ciri.
Yeah, I like that. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I do think that's a really strong case for why. I do agree. Like, I think the urgency of knowing Yennefer's being shot at because there's arrows coming through the portal, and also they spend a lot of time on that establishing shot of the scene outside of the castle. So you see these little red stones, and you see that the castle's embedded in a cliff. And this obviously means something, foreshadowing, yay, for later episodes to come. So I do agree, like, he must have gotten enough information. But yeah, I think I don't disagree that at this point, Rience is probably more helpful alive than dead. I do think it's more plot armor.
Yeah.
Just kill him. Just kill him. Whap, whap. No devil is better than a known devil.
That's also true.
A dead devil is way better than a known or an unknown devil. Let's just be specific here.
Yeah.
Just kill him.
The way that it was done in the books, at the end of Blood of Elves, in which Philippa physically immobilizes Geralt and allows Rience to escape. I think having a similar mechanism in episode 301 probably would have felt more believable,
and less like a choice that I just personally don't think Geralt would have made.
Yeah,
I'm like, Geralt knows that Rience wants to kill his daughter, his Ciri. And he went to go like snap on his wrist and be like, you wait here, mister, and I'm just going to go skedaddle out here. Like, that doesn't make sense. Not to me. Like, why wouldn't he kill him to save his daughter?
Yeah, I think one external force that would have kind of helped tie it together a little bit better.
And you're right. It does feel out of character with like no other clues. And also knowing that in season 1, Geralt tried to avoid a fight with Renfri because he knew that he couldn't stop once he started. Like, he would just finish the job, and he does get very protective over Ciri, as we know reading the books.
Yeah. It was just an oddly passive choice to me. Like, he's in the middle of a battle. He knows that the people he loves is being attacked, and he went like, you know what? I'm just going to save this snack for later. And I'm just...
stuff it in the couch cushions for a hot second.
You know what I mean? I'm just going to like snap his wrist, then leave him here. I'm going to find you later, bucko. Like, that just... no.
Yeah.
Kill him. You know what I mean? Like, that's my opinion here. Like, to me, I didn't get the choice. That was his kid he could have saved. He could have had one less threat towards Ciri had he killed him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think if they added one element to either physically stop Geralt from killing Rience, or
like collapse the ceiling for all I care.
Like an act of God, sure, collapse the ceiling, or maybe there's like some sort of protection spell or barrier that Geralt himself can't get through, but Rience gets behind, like something that physically prevents him from doing the job, and then now he has no choice.
You could have gone full on dust in your eyes, like pocket dust, you know what I mean? And run. That would have worked.
And then arrows to bring Geralt back through the portal.
Just a bit of pocket dust can save a lot of things, you know what I mean?
Glitter. So I certainly think there are ways, like, it could have been improved. Like, I do think obviously Rience needs to be around for like reasons, but
of course
it is what it is. But I do think that like one small addition could have made this scene more believable for viewers and for the character. This is a huge scene that ends the episode, and we get a lot of small moments around the continent as well, following the fight at Shaerrawedd. As we kind of close down our discussion of the episode, I want to ask, like, how would you guys say the stakes are raised for each faction after the fight at Shaerrawedd? So we see our main trio in Jaskier, Francesca and the Scoia'tael, Philippa and Redania, and even like a little hint of Nilfgaard at the end as well. So how would you guys say this episode 301 sets up the stakes for the rest of the season?
it's definitely not going well for the elves or the elf queen. So it feels like Francesca needs to really do her best to unite the elves, because too many have died for her ideals.
It's just setting up the vibe for the whole thing. Again, the whole episode was like quite high paced. We had a lot of different plot points, but it all just showed us, it gave us a feeling of what's to come, which is, it was such a good way to do it, because we were like anticipating so many interesting things just by episode 1 alone.
Yeah. I also feel like it did a nice job of like giving us a hint of like the Redanian intelligence. Having a little rift between King Vizimir.
I love Felipa and Dijkstra constantly arguing about who gets to top. Well, I mean, decide the things.
I know. I love their dynamic.
It's so good. It's so good. I love them.
They're so strong together. And I think with Hugh Skinner as Radovid as well, that little trio, just a delight to watch. And they're such strong actors and very delightful.
Oh, Hugh was brilliant. He was brilliant. He nailed him. That was so good. Like, I know he's not what he is in the books, of course. He's like way younger. But how I imagined him, like, knowing he would come into the season as an adult, how I envisioned this prince, spot on. That was just how I hoped he would be.
Yeah, like when he was introduced, I was like, oh, he's going to be an idiot like Vizimir. And it's like, oh.
Exactly.
Layers. He's like an onion.
Yeah. He's like an ogre.
Yeah. It's the onion.
Just a very, very pretty one. Yeah, I think with all of these different factions, like our main trio and Jaskier, they're obviously getting much more desperate. We see that throughout the whole beginning. Like Geralt has Yen and Ciri on the move constantly. And then through their time at Yarpen's and with Bellaton.
I'm going to say something about Yarpen because I love him. Okay, I love him. And I need to fangirl a little bit about him because he was so freaking awesome in this season.
Jeremy, you're doing great.
Oh, no, seriously, I loved it. I loved it so much. There's no one out there who could embody Yarpen like Jeremy can. He nails that little shit that Yarpen actually is.
Yes.
No, but the thing is, and he plays him so well, and especially the whole you have to earn my respect kind of thing, but if you have it, it's forever. He just does it so well. And it's that little moment when Yarpen finds Jaskier, and Jaskier is like reintroducing him. He's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I know. Like, but I just don't care. Don't you get it? Like, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Loved it. Oh, God, I loved it so much. I love how blunt he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like it is a delight to see him season over season because I don't think I think as with a lot of the other characters, I'm glad that they're stringing them through every single season and bringing these actors and these characters back.
Like they do with Filavandrel. I'm so happy because, like, as everyone knows, that's my favorite character.
Yes.
If it's not quite obvious, I play favorites. Like, and I know we didn't get much of Filavandrel here, but a thing that I will say, just from my little perspective over here, is that we see more and more how loyal he is. And I know we didn't get to see much of him, but I have been talking a lot about Filavandrel being like absolutely loyal to the core, and we see it here, especially seeing him so strongly disagree with Francesca and still stand by her side.
Yeah,
I love that because even with what little we got of him in this episode, it showed so much. Like we had so much in so little time of his personality there. I loved it.
Yeah, and I think to come back to that original question as well, like when we talk about the stakes being raised for the elves, with Filavandrel and Francesca, like she has the loss of her brother Gage, and I love how they did that in the episode just because Gage's death happened from Ciri and Geralt's perspective, and it happens so quickly. And for them, obviously, it's one more elf, like just getting Ciri out of the way, out of harm's way. But you see in the background the toll it takes on Francesca and on Filavandrel. Yeah. And I think that distance is so important. And there were so many moments in that fight scene where you see Yarp and Dara and Gallatin fight each other. And I did not think one of them was going to make it out of there alive. I was freaking out. I was like, Dara's going to die, Yarpin's going to die, Gallatin's going to die.
I was like, I gotta be honest, I was just sitting here, as long as I get to keep Yarpin, I was sitting there.
Yes. Same.
And I'm like, I'm an elf fan, and I just want to keep Yarpin because I don't know, it was just blind naivety, but I was like, I'm definitely going to be keeping Francesca and Phil, so I'm good there. But like, I need to keep Yarpin too. Like,
yeah, I know. I think like it's certainly a choice, and I think one that draws in the audience to have like named recurring characters actually fighting each other, and it's like, oh no. Then there's like emotional investment, and it's no longer just like background noise. It's something that can affect our characters in the plot in a very critical way.
It's like, don't do me dirty like Game of Thrones did, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Every time I saw the moment, I was like, where is Yarpin? Is he in the way?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
We're looking out for you, Jeremy.
It's like, no, not our sassy dwarf. We want to keep him. God, I love that character. Like what they've done with him in the show, I love him so much. Like he's way less likable in the books. Like I always enjoyed him, especially like his tendency to quip. You know what I mean? Like his tendency to like just throw in a snarky comment here and there. I always loved that. But they gave him so much heart in the show, I feel like. I love him.
So fun. And like I said, I think that this specific episode does such a good job of bringing viewers back into the world, and brings in, things that people have enjoyed from season 1 and 2, Monster of the Week, a little bit of political intrigue, so that we're kind of primed for the new changes, the new pace, the new tone and feel of the show for season 3, excuse me. And so, as we kind of come to the end of our podcast recording, what are your overall thoughts or any final thoughts on episode 301, Shaerrawedd?
Overall thoughts? I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know it sounds so cheesy and so simple, but I loved it. I loved it. It is actually my favorite episode so far of the season, and I have never had an episode 1 ever be my favorite episode of anything. So it's like, to me, an episode 1 is always an odd kind of introduction to a season. But here it had so much story in itself, and I just enjoyed it so much. And I guess also I had a little bit of fun seeing locations I had visited.
Oh, very cool.
After filming. So episode 1 means a lot to me. I got like all my favorite characters, minus Waldo. I get him later. I love that guy. But like, it was just so good. I think I have like the only critique I have of the entire thing is the overuse of blurry backgrounds.
Sure.
That's literally it. Like, I am enjoying the plot. I am enjoying the pacing, the character development, even something as simple as the lightings in the scenes. I love that, especially because we finally get night scenes where we can see something. Like, they actually get it in the show. You know what I mean? Like, that we need to be able to understand what's happening in a dark scene.
Oh yeah, thank God that they are not like 2 degrees above like pitch black for like the jacket pace scene and the maze scene. Thanks, production.
Jurassic Park gets it, and The Witcher gets it. So yeah, overall I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it as well. The music is better, the plot is better, the characters are getting there, getting better. Overall, like, the first episode and this season so far has been really, really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it, which I didn't expect to.
Sure.
There's been a lot of criticism, yeah.
I do think that's a fair critique. I think given the direction that the show has continued to move in, it's finding its footing. And I think, in my opinion, it's certainly coming into its own in season 3. And I do think episode 301 was kind of a strong statement about how they're going to push the series forward and give it its own voice and its own texture, which I think is really exciting. So episode 1, I think, puts us on a good a good track for the rest of the season, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the season takes us as well. So that is it for our show today. Gintare, Vang, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode, and thank you to our Hanza for listening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so happy to have gotten you both on the show again in Vang's case, and for the first time in Gintare's, and to introduce you guys as well, because you're both artists and creatives and Scoia'tael lovers and elf lovers.
The elves are just really awesome.
Yeah, so where can people find you guys? And is there anything that our community can help you with or anything that you'd like to share?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under the name Vangberg1 with the number 1 at the end. Yeah, I post a bit of art, a bit of doodles. I just have some fun with you guys, and I hope you come join me.
You can find me on Instagram at Mia_Vine. That's MIYA_Vine. I'm also on Tumblr with the same username. And you can find me on Twitter, though I'm not sure how long I'll be there with the new limit.
Because Twitter.
I mainly want to see art from other artists, and they're really limiting that.
Well, you can find myself and Gintare in the Hanza Discord too. Vang makes an appearance there if we call them. So yeah,
I need to be summoned because they overwhelm me.
Anytime we summon you, Vang, it's always like, look, the new art Vang made. Look how lovely it looks. They did such a great job.
I get so shy when you guys do that. You have no idea.
Well, you're very, very loved in the Hanza Discord.
And you guys are very, very loved too. Don't you ever doubt that.
And this is your call to anyone listening out there to also join the Hanza Discord so we can shower you in affection as well.
Yeah.
So next episode, join us as we continue our discussion of The Witcher Season 3 with episode 302, Unbound. Thanks for joining us at the breakfast table. For show notes, transcripts of each episode, and a complete list of our social platforms and listening services, head over to breakfastandbeauclair.com. Breakfast and Beauclair is created by Alyssa from GoodMorhen. It's hosted by Alyssa. The show is edited by Alyssa with music by Alex Berner. Breakfast and Beauclair is produced by Alyssa in New York City with Katie the Redhead of Tucson, Jacob B., Charlotte from Vancouver Glamorai, the original Roach, Libby, John of Riblia, Tom from Australia, Jill Kate the Tabby Witch, Ollie from Sweden, James Carson III, Miriam of Temeria, and Softy. Special thanks to Gintare and Vang for joining us for this episode, and our international Hanza for their support.